Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast. It's a lot less people on the football podcast, but it is, in fact, the football podcast. And weirdly, a lot less football to discuss. As I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, the season is drawing to a close, for some more than others, unfortunately. So, there's that. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously the big one, the favourite of all podcasts is share the podcast around. If you've got a football fan in your life, send them this podcast. They might just thank you for it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, football podcast.
Welcome in, ladies, gents, one and all, and welcome back to the CookieCast podcast, the football podcast. Obviously, those of you watching on YouTube will notice that there's very, very few faces facing back at you this week. Two, to be exact. No Mr. Cook or Mr. Moore this week. Sadly, they are unable to join us, so it's just myself and Hull's finest, Mr. Stuart Woodmansey, coming at you this week. How are we this week, Mr. W?
It's just us two here to finish off the championship season, as we have the championship teams. So, end of season party, anyone?
It's almost as if it was written in the stars, as I believe Tiny Temper once said. But yes, we are indeed here to discuss last week's games, of which two of the four were the final game of the season for now, for both Borough and Hull. But before we get to those, we have to go through the first of the four games, which was Nottingham Forest taking on Brentford, in what effectively was Forest's game in hand from the FA Cup weekend set of fixtures that they obviously missed out on because they were in the FA Cup semi-final. So, Forest welcomed Brentford to town on a Thursday evening, and it was actually Brentford that seemed to have the better of the first half. From the highlights that I saw, there was a free kick from the right-hand side that fell on the head of the centre-half, Vandenberg, whose brother just happened to play for Middlesbrough. He had a header on the edge of the 6-yard box that drew a nice smart save from Matt Sells. The only other thing of note, other than the first goal that took place in the first half, was there was a moment where Brentford could have found themselves down to 10 men. I think Stu, you actually mentioned this in our group chat that Keane Lewis Potter was playing left wing back. I'm assuming.
Yeah, he was.
And he found himself up against Ola Aina, and he rather had him on toast, it would seem. I'm assuming he was booked early doors and then almost got a second yellow for I think it officially went down as a foul on Ola Aina, but it just looked like he was a bit of a push more than anything else. Ref was having none of it, but I think it would have been harsh if a second yellow had been given from what I'd seen. But it was certainly enough of a talking point where Forest. It was enough of a talking point for Sky to actually put it in the highlights package. Let's put it that way.
I think it was possibly checked over though as well. So it was one that was looked at just in case.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think it would have been very harsh if it had been given personally. So all that's left was the first goal of the game, and unfortunately, from a Forest perspective, it was Brentford that took the lead, and it was kind of just It almost felt at the time a bit like a bit of a hike up the middle of the park from Nathan Collins. Unfortunately, Forest, Sade was able to latch onto it. It looked at one point as if Aina had managed to cover his run into the box. But just as he was about to intercept the ball, he slipped right at the last moment, and Shada was able to just nip the ball past Sells from just inside the box. So Forest went in 1-0 down at the break. They had a good chance to equalise into the second half when Elanga drew a smart save from Flecken to his left-hand side. Up the other end, Chris Wood could have equalised, but his header went wide from an Aina cross.
I believe that's the point where you should have used the coulda, woulda,
Oh,
shoulda line. Come on,
it was
Paul.
right there. It was right there, and I wasn't able to get it. Oh, I think that means I have to rescind my dad jokes card. But sadly, yeah, not my finest hour, shall we say? Yeah, so that would miss would actually prove to be very, very costly as Brentford wrapped up the game in the 70th minute, and it was basically just a route one ball over the top. This time it was a goal kick. Flecken just taking the goal kick. The ball just bounced, and it was almost as if Milinkovic just didn't react to the bounce of the ball. Either that, or he just got completely caught out by the sort of the bounce of the ball. And Wissa was on the bobby to latch onto it. And to be fair to him, he took his finish really well. You could see that Sells was coming out to try and close him down, and he just got to the ball first and just got a little scoopy over the keeper, just to dink it in and make it 2-0 and kind of kill the game. The only other thing I've got again is that Brentford had another situation where they could have found themselves a man light when Norgard was defending on the byline and seemed to almost kick out at Ryan Yates. Again, was checked by the VAR. They weren't concerned with it, but it didn't look. It wasn't great. It wasn't. That was one of those ones where if the ref does see it and decides it's worth a second yellow, he probably doesn't have much of a leg to stand on. And then Mbuemo had a chance to wrap it up, make it even more comprehensive for Brentford at the end. But his left foot strike curled way over the bar. Disappointing from a Forest perspective was that leaves them very much on the outside of the top 5 spots for the Champions League. 3 points not dropped, but certainly a point potentially dropped in their quest for Champions League football. From a podcast perspective, it's not much better from a predictions perspective, as no one had Forest to lose. Myself and Andy had both gone 2-0 Forest with Wood and Gibbs-White to score. Stuart got 1-0 Forest, just Wood to score. Matt was the closest, as he got a 1-1 draw with Wood to score for Forest and Wissa to score for Brentford. Obviously, when he made that pick, because Wissa was linked with a move to Forest in the January transfer window and it never materialised. So Matt is the only one who picks up a point there. 1 point in the first game. So, our second game takes us to the aforementioned last game of the Championship season, and it's my lot up first as Coventry City were taking on Middlesbrough. And as I said on last week's podcast, I had the great fortune of being in person for this game. However, unfortunately, the in-person nature of that game was that I was sat in the home end, and I didn't like what I saw. As unfortunately, I had to celebrate twice as Middlesbrough lost the game 2-0. Middlesbrough went into this one with absolutely no illusions as to what they had to do. They had to win, and then they had to hope that some of the results went their way. They had to hope that neither Blackburn nor Millwall picked up 3 points, and then they would be in the playoffs. Happy days. So, of course, because they needed the win, Coventry started out on the front foot in this one. They were definitely the livelier of the two. Sakamoto down the right hand side was definitely the sort of the main impetus of the game from a Coventry perspective. I certainly felt. Ellis Sims had the first chance of the game of note. He flashed an early chance wide from a move from Sakamoto down the right hand side. But then Borough sort of grew into the game as the longer it played out. It took about half an hour or so for that to be the case. But the next couple of big chances did fall Borough's way. A surging sort of run through the middle of the park from Whittaker, from Conway out on the left-hand side. He held the ball up for the oncoming Illing Jr., who was playing further up the pitch than his left-back role that he found himself playing in previous weeks. His effort, one of those ones where if he takes it a little bit further back, might be able to get the sort of angle to whip it. His left-footed effort was always curling away from goal. Keeper dived for it because he was in kind of no man's land really, but it was never really looked like it was tracking in. It was one of those ones that just sort of always looks like it's shaping to go wide at the post. One that did look like it was going in was a chance from Finn Azaz. He found himself carrying the ball to the edge of the box and shaped to just put it in the corner. And the keeper managed to get a hand on it and tip it onto the post, and then obviously wide. This is the Coventry goalkeeper who hadn't played the last game and dropped a clanger to let Luton win the game. This was a change of goalkeeper, and definitely just only happens against the Borough, I swear to God. The keeper had an absolute stormer. He was definitely man of the match. I don't think it was given to him. I think it was given to Rodoni. But my man of the match was definitely the Coventry goalkeeper as he kept him in the game. Coventry were the team who drew first blood, and it was Sakamoto down the right-hand side who was certainly the best of the Coventry players in the first half. It was his cross from the right-hand side that found the head of the aforementioned Rodoni, the head past Travers into the bottom left-hand corner and give Coventry a 1-0 half-time lead. Second half starts. Borough, obviously, the need for them to go on has now become even more intense. So they were the ones setting the agenda, setting the tone for the second half. Borges back in the team at left back found himself on the left hand side and his clipped ball to the back post found Whittaker. He cut the ball back to the penalty spot, and Azaz was arriving to all intents and purposes to just roll the ball into the net. But he managed to find the one area of the goal where the keeper found himself yet again, and he smothered the ball on the goal line to keep it out. Up the other end, Rodoni had a chance to make it 2, but drew a good save from Travers. Back down the other end, this is when the game started to get a bit stretched, with a bit basketball-ish. You had the chances at both ends. Bergzorg was the next one to miss a good chance for the Borough, cutting in onto his right hand foot, cutting into his right foot from the left hand side of the pitch. Had a chance to just seeing the replay back. He has to do better. The keeper's left an awful lot of the right hand side of the goal, or his left, as it were, open, and Bergzorg just completely put too much on it and just put it about 2 feet too high of the goal. Very annoying. After that point, Coventry brought on Brandon Thomas Asante to use his pace in behind, and that really did come across as a bit of a game changer from that perspective, as it was he had a solo effort that managed to come back off the post. Looked another one that looked all day like it was going to roll into the back of the net, but thankfully, from our perspective, it didn't. Whittaker went up the other end and basically carbon copy, smashed an effort off the post. However, Coventry made the game safe, and it was a Thomas Asante breakaway that set up the second goal. Borough had a chance that was chipped into the box, and it was cleared. At first, it just seemed like a hopeful punt upfield from Bobby Thomas. But Thomas Asante managed to shrug Dale Fry off the ball and just carry the ball further in the box. Looked up, saw that Jack Rodoni was arriving on the edge of the box. His little square ball found him perfectly just to smash the ball under Travers and seal a 2-0 win. Cue mad celebrations from the Coventry fans and sees them into the playoffs, finishing fifth, and they will now have a two-legged tie against Sunderland to see who goes to the playoff final. So disappointing from my perspective that I didn't see the result that I wanted. But to be fair to the Coventry fans, they made a hell of a racket, and it was a great atmosphere. That was something. And on a small side note, we were part of the highest attendance in Coventry City history at the CBS Arena. So a nice little side note of sorts. Yeah, not a great deal of consolation as it comes, to be honest with you. Just a season that needs to be sort of consigned to the history books, really. 18 wins, 10 draws, 18 losses. Yeah, not one for the ages. Disappointing, to say the least. Borough end up finishing 10th. Not a banner season from a Middlesbrough perspective. Predictions-wise, Andy had gone for a 2-0 Borough win, so no points for him. Matt had gone for a 2-2 draw. Lata Bodier and Borges Rodriguez for Coventry. Azaz and Conway for the Borough, no points for him. I'd gone for a 2-1 Coventry win with Wright, Sims and Whitaker to score, so no points for goal scorers, but at least I did get a bonus point for the correct result. Stuart gone for a 1-1 draw, so no points for the result, but did have Rodoni to score for Coventry. No Conway goal to make up for it though. So just a point for me, point for Stu, point for Matt from the first game, Andy still to score. Our third and final game of the week, our third and final game championship element of this particular season was probably the more important game, as it saw Portsmouth taking on Hull City. Hull went into this one knowing that a win would be absolutely sufficient and they could not be relegated with a win, but they also went in knowing that a point might be enough if other results went in their favour. Now, I know that you said that you weren't able to watch this one as you were busy doing something else, but were you able to at least keep abreast of the situation somewhat?
So, I was able to be in the house for the first half of the game. So I had to follow it along on Sky Sports News at couldn't get the live footage going, shall we say. But yeah, as you rightly said, we discussed it and all the different mathematical equations that could possibly fall out of this game as to what they needed. But the bottom line was that City needed to go into this with a mindset of win and you're in. And they went with a very attacking lineup. And 2,100 travelling fans that set off between 3 and 4 in the morning to get there for a 12:30 kickoff. Again, fair play to the owner, because anybody who bought a match ticket for Portsmouth had the opportunity to get a free bus there that he paid for. So a nice gesture to finish the season in really one that can, as Paul described, for the Borough. One also for Hull City that can just be consigned to the history books and never to be spoken of again. But yeah, the lineup brought back in Pedro, Puerta, Crooks, so it was everything looking forward. And it was a long Puerta throw, followed by a bit of a goalmouth scramble. That was the first real action of the game. Nobody could quite poke the ball home, but the City just kept going. So shortly after, Louis Coyle had an effort saved to deny Hull the early lead, but further pressure drew a corner from which Hull did take the lead after 18 minutes. Puerta's cross from the corner spot flicked on by the head of Pedro into the path of Crooks, pretty much in the middle of the 6-yard box. Arrived perfect time, put the ball home. Cue wild celebrations in the away end. Should point out early doors in the game as well, we're having to keep abreast of the Luton score particularly, and the Preston score, and a few others, but and the Derby and Stoke score. Now, the Derby game and the Preston game at this point were both draw, um, goalless draw. Luton and West Brom had already had a goal each, I think, by this point. So there was a point where West Brom were winning and Hull were drawing 0-0, and that was fine. There was a point where Luton then equalised, but then Hull scored to go in front, which made it more than fine. There was a point briefly where Hull went up as high as 18th, just from that goal going in. I know, the heady heights of 18th. But yeah, the game obviously had to carry on. The referee didn't blow the final whistle all around the league at that point, so we continue. It did take a little while after City's opening goal, but Portsmouth did start to then grow into the game. A couple of half chances mustered before the break, but thankfully came to nothing. Hull went into the half-time interval with a 1-0 lead. There was a bit of an astute substitution for at half-time for the home side, and it saw the introduction of Christian Sadie, who seemed to absolutely just change the fortunes of the entire Portsmouth side in the second half. To say he made them tick would possibly be an understatement. As we mentioned, unfortunately at this point, I had to go out. Following your team on the radio with everything riding on, staying up or not, is not a recommended way to spend a Saturday afternoon, particularly if you're then going to be in the company of other people who generally I was probably fairly miserable around until the final whistle came and obviously things had been decided. But would my misery continue beyond that point? Well, as I mentioned, Christian Sadie being a pain in the backside, he actually equalised from a very tight angle on 55 minutes, sending the home crowd wild and the away crowd to their phones to check the scores elsewhere. John Egan had a chance to seal it for Hull in stoppage time, but the fingertips of Killip pushed the ball wide. The game finished 1-1. So we got a point, not guaranteed safety. What happened in the other games? Well, the main thing was that West Brom and Luton played out a 5-3 home team win. So Luton lost. That meant that Hull drew level on points with Luton, however, had a better goal difference. So that kept Hull in the Championship and confirmed back-to-back relegations for Luton. Not a great day at the office for any team that has any kind of amber/orange tinge around their kit. But thankfully for Hull, we came out on the right side of that one. And historically, with Hull and Luton being in the same division, it's generally been Luton that seem to have got the better of Hull. But thankfully this time, that wasn't the case. Hull have secured championship status for next season, albeit by the absolute skin of their teeth. Yeah, I'd like to say I was happy. I'll probably just go with slightly less miserable about football than I was last week.
Listen, doesn't matter how you get there. All you need to do is get the points on the board and secure that championship status. Is all I'll say. And that's what they did. They went in knowing exactly what they needed to do, and they played the script perfectly, shall we say. So congratulations to Hull. I did see that you put a little thing on social media about the fact that it's not really one to celebrate. It's more a case of job done. Let's move on to next season and let's make sure we're not in this position come 12 months' time. I would certainly echo that sentiment. Predictions-wise, Matt had gone for a 1-0 Hull win with João Pedro to score, so he gets no points. Stu had hedged his bet somewhat and had gone for a 2-1 Portsmouth win. Bishop, Murphy, and Gelhard to score the goals, so no points for him. I'd gone for a 2-2 draw, so I got a point for the draw. I had Bishop, Saidi to score for Portsmouth, Joao Pedro, and Gelhard to score for Hull, so I brought myself 2 points. Mr. Cook, however, went for a 1-1 draw, so straight off the bat, 2 points for the correct score. He had Blair to score for Portsmouth, so no correct there, but he did have Crooks to score for Hull, so bags himself 3 points just for that one game. So, as it stands going into the last game, Stuart and Matt are both on a point each. Myself and Andy are both on 3 points each, and we finish the week with Crystal Palace versus Nottingham Forest. Now, how the other results had fallen over the course of the weekend, Forest knew that if they went into this one and won, they would draw themselves level on points with both Chelsea and Newcastle in the race for the top 5. I believe they went in 5th place. Let me just double check that. I might have got that wrong. No, 6th, sorry, because Man City were so as it stands, Liverpool obviously won the title. Arsenal currently in 2nd, Man City in 3rd, Newcastle 4th, Chelsea 5th in the last Champions League spot. So, yeah, Forest went into the game knowing that a win would bring them level on points with Newcastle and Chelsea. They would just have an inferior goal difference. So it would still be down in 6th place, but it would be closer. So, Forest playing away from home, ideally of the two, need the result more. You'd like to think that they will be the ones setting the tone, setting the pace for that. So, because it's one of our teams, of course, Palace hit the ground running to start off the game. I've got down to the first chance that of note was a Munoz shot in the box that drew a smart save from Sells. Forest broke up the other end. Elanga was the recipient of a sort of a sweeping move onto the edge of the box, but his effort was straight at Henderson, a little bit tame. That was all I had for the first half. It seemed a bit sort of slow, a bit pedestrian. Don't know if you'd seen anything of note that was anything to sort of shout about.
No, I don't think. I mean, pedestrian was maybe a little harsh. It was one of them games. I sort of had it on because I wanted to try and keep up with it, purely for Matt. And the bits that I did see were kind of. It was one of them games that felt better for a neutral sort of thing. Like both teams looked like they were going to sort of try and give it a go, but they just needed a bit of winding up first. There were some decent chances created, but as you said, when it got to the final product, it was either a bit tame or straight at the keeper. So
Yeah.
I don't think it. I mean, I have seen some shit football this year. Shit football. It wasn't anywhere near what I've had to watch in that regard. It wasn't. It wasn't that bad.
You would, you would hope that the standard is better in the
Well,
Premier League compared to the Championship, but even
well, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't recall thinking, "Oh, this game's terrible." But I think it was one of them that, like, I think Palace definitely had the better of the first sort of 20 minutes for sure, and then Forest seemed to grow into it. And I think the more that the first half wore on, um, like some of their sort of their bigger names, particularly across the back, were kind of sort of stepping up to the plate a little bit more. But then obviously the second half comes, and it didn't entirely go to plan, did it?
no, very much not. There was a couple of chances at each end for either of the teams. Sarr had a shot saved by Sells, and Wood had his effort blocked wide by Lacroix. But it was Palace that took the lead, and it was from not a contentious penalty decision because when you watch it back, it is a clear penalty. But it was a penalty that was not given on the field. It is a penalty that was referred back to the referee from the VAR. Ball was played in from the right hand side for the left back Mitchell to latch onto on the sort of the wraparound. And he did really well. I felt he took it sort of like first time, like took like the ball on the bounce to try and sort of kill it, and he got there before both the defender and the keeper. And I felt that Sky were a bit harsh on this one because they said, "Oh yeah, Sells has definitely fouled him there." Arguably, I think Dominguez takes him out first, personally. So
Yeah,
Dominguez sort of like in his slide takes Mitchell's foot out, and I think that's an attributing factor to how he then basically bundles into the keeper and get taken out further. Um,
you can see in real time why the ref didn't give it because,
mm,
and again, it's a line that I know Matt's sort of uttered before in the sense of like if you know if you slow it down to the frame, you can anything's a foul basically. But on this occasion, in real time, it didn't look
no,
as bad. But yeah, it was when you then watched it back through the VAR stuff. It was like, well, which one of the two fouls was it given for?
yeah, I think it's one of those classic ones, isn't it? Like arguably two penners basically, but
Hmm.
because he gets fouled twice. But yeah,
It was unfortunate though as well because I think particularly Sells was having a decent game up until that point.
yeah, yeah, that is definitely true. He made a couple of good saves, to be fair. So VAR overturns it. Penalties given. Eze picks up the ball, sets it down on the spot, has the now seeming to be customary step up to the penalty spot, staggered run, have a look at the keeper, see which way he's set, give him the eyes, and then just blast the ball into the side netting. Uh, Good penner, to be fair to Eze. Good technique. Obviously,
I can't be doing with the whole Fred Flintstone run up though. That can get to
when it
fuck.
when it doesn't come off, you do look like a bit of a tit, though. As
Mm.
obviously Borough have found to their detriment with Tommy Conway against both Norwich and Sheffield Wednesday this season. It's all right though, because those points that were dropped never came back to bite Borough really. Oh, sorry. Um, yeah, so 1-0 Palace on the hour mark. And Forest weren't hanging about. They equalised 4 minutes later. Um, Anderson with the corner from the right hand side managed to make its way through to Nico Williams, sort of on the left hand corner of the box. His effort at first looked like it just hit Murillo and went in, but on second glance, I think this is a really tidy finish from Murillo. If you look, he has a look at where the keeper is, and I think he means to do what he's gone for. He sort of sticks a foot out as if to sort of just try and redirect it, and it comes off perfectly. Totally changes the trajectory of the ball. It's looking like it's going into the left hand side, but Murillo sort of redirects it into the right hand side of the goal. I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought this was a really good finish.
It was one that, like you said, at first it looked like it just pinged off him, and then when they replayed it, you were like, that was pretty smart. Like he
Yeah.
meant it. He absolutely meant it. There's no doubt about it for me.
Mm.
But obviously, his game unfortunately didn't see it all the way through to the final whistle either, did he? Because
It did not.
he was
And
forced
he's
off
now,
a hamstring injury. Is that right?
yeah, I think they said it looked like he was reaching, he was feeling for his hamstring, and that's unfortunate, of course, because he's a massive part of that defence.
Yeah.
And if he's missing the like, even if it's just the next game, that'll be a big blow for the rest of the season. Um, but yeah, the only other chance that I had down was that Eze should have probably won it at the end for Palace, but his effort from the edge of the box smashed against the top of the bar and came out. Um, so yes, in the end, a 1-1 draw, enough to see Forest cement sixth place, but does leave them 2 points shy of that all important fifth place, which would be good enough for a Champions League spot. Um, what I did see was that if they had have won this game, they would be guaranteed European football for next season. So that would obviously be Conference League at worst. Um, so still work to do to guarantee European football, but as it stands, they're still in for a Europa League spot if the season was to finish as it is. So I'll just do the wrap up of the admin. Andy had gone for a 2-0 Forest win here. Wood and Elanga to score, no points for him. Matt had gone for a 2-1 Palace win. Mateta, Nketiah and Elanga, so no points for him. Myself and Stuart both gone for 1-1 draws here. Stuart had Mateta and Elanga down to score. I had Eze and Elanga down to score. So I bagged myself a bonus point for the Eze goal, but we both got 2 points for the correct scoreline there. So I bagged myself 3 points for that particular game. Stu, 2 points for that particular game. Andy and Matt, 0 points. So finishing the week, we have Matt on 1 point from 4 games. Stu and Andy, 3 points from 4 games. But I win the week, as it were, with 6 points from the 4 games. And from a very sort of nice perspective, I managed to score precisely 0, 1, 2, and 3 points ascendingly. So a nice little, I can't even think of the word. Pattern. That's the word I'm looking for. A nice patterned way to finish the season. So that's the predictions from last week done and dusted. We have week 37 to look forward to. But before we get onto that, we will just step away very momentarily and take a small break. Don't do anything. We will be right back. And you see, just like that, our break is over, but your enjoyment continues right now. So, week 36, done and dusted. Championship season, done and dusted. As we discussed, Middlesbrough finishing 10th, Hull finishing 21st, which is enough to be above that dotted line, and that is all that matters. So, for the rest of the season, we only have 3 games left to cover. It's Nottingham Forest's last 3 fixtures of the season, the first of which takes place this week and sees Nottingham Forest taking on Leicester City, their East Midlands rivals. I know that Matt's not particularly enamoured with the goings-on at the Walkers Stadium, or I believe the Crisp Bowl, as it used to be referred to. It's not even the Walker Stadium anymore, it's the King Power. But yes, no love lost between Forest and Leicester. Dare I suggest that since Leicester had their miraculous title-winning season, that's probably not gone down well, because everyone was giving it large that it's the greatest accomplishment in the history of English football. Nottingham Forest there just with the hold my beer, with their one First Division title and 2 Champions Leagues, making them the only club in European football that have won the European Cup more times than they've won their own domestic league. That is some feat. So, Nottingham Forest versus Leicester. Like I said before, Forest going to this one knowing that 2 more points between now and the end of the season guarantees them European football next season. A win definitely keeps them in the hunt for the Champions League places. It's Matt's team. I do have his prediction. I will give that last. So, I also have Andy's prediction, which I will give now. Andy's gone with a 2-0 Nottingham Forest win. Goal apiece for Wood and Elanga. I too have gone for a Forest 2-0 win. I've gone for Milinkovic and Wood. What have you got down, Stu?
I also have Forest to win by a 2-goal margin, but I have got Nottingham Forest 3, Leicester 1. The form's been a little bit worrying for the last few weeks, but their destiny is still very much in their own hands, I think, in the sense of the fixtures they've got left. So they need to take the opportunity against a side that's already relegated, albeit, yeah, East Midlands derby, whatever. At the end of the day, Leicester have been woeful this season, and more than anything, would like them to just absolutely stick one on Jamie Vardy. So, 3-1 win for Forest. I've hedged my bets and gone for a full spread of goal scorers in Wood, Elanga, and Morgan Gibbs-White. And then for Leicester, I've gone for Ndidi.
Yes, indeedy. Lovely. Matt is in agreement with all of us. He too has a Forest win, and he's very much in agreement with Mr. Woodmansey, as he's also gone for a 3-1 Forest win. He's even got 2 of the 3 goal scorers. He's gone for Wood, Elanga. He's gone for a Wonyi as his 3rd goal scorer. And then king shithouse himself. He's gone from Vardy to notch for Leicester. Could be his last goal in the Premier League and as a Leicester City player. Let's wait and see.
I'm really hoping that ship has already sailed, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, but listen, he's got 3 more chances, hasn't he, between now and the end of the season to sort of get himself on the score sheet
Is
again.
is he Is he actually retiring, or is he just leaving
No, no,
Leicester?
no, no. His Leicester contract's expiring and he's not signing a new one. So
Oh my
I
God! Well,
imagine.
if he's not retiring, the level of relief that must have gone through the Red Bull boardroom must be incredible.
I think the early favourite is that he rocks up at Chef Wednesday.
I was going to say, don't say Hull. Do not say Hull.
There was, I think there'd been talk that Wrexham had offered him a contract or like a pre-contract or something like that, and apparently he's already said no to that. But let's be honest, if the contract states we will basically pay you whatever the fuck you want, and we'll speak to the Red Bull guys and see if we can get you on the board or something like that. Please come and play for us. It just,
when
I don't know if it's just me, but it definitely seems like Wrexham have just signed strikers for the last 2 years.
I think he'd be a better fit at Wednesday because what's another shit house to add to the pile?
Him and Josh Windass in the same team. Interesting. And
And
Barry
Barry
Bannon.
Bannon.
Yeah. It would be interesting to say the least. So yes, it's just a one and done for us this week, predictions wise. Just a one game to predict. We might throw in the FA Cup at the end of the season if we can really be asked, but it's probably not going to happen because it's Man City versus Palace. Who really cares? So that would normally bring us to the end of the podcast, but obviously the curtain has closed on the Championship season. Um, I don't know about Hull, but Borough certainly haven't yet announced their retained list for players that are out of contract and that are staying. However, they have seen on Instagram that one of the academy players has announced that he's not being renewed. So we're probably not too far off that coming out. It's normally within a couple of weeks of the season ended. So watch this space. Wouldn't be surprised if people like Johnny House and Anthony Dykesdale have played their last game for the Borough. I'm assuming there'll be a fair amount of turnover at Hull. I don't know how many players that they brought in last season were only on like 1 year deals or.
Part of it will potentially depend on the management situation as well.
Mm,
Because obviously, yeah, contractually the players are contracted to the club, not the manager. I understand that, but I'd like to think that the manager would have a bit of input in, um, if new contracts are being offered and all that kind of stuff as well. However,
mm,
despite staying up, there is some doubt over the future of one Mr. Ruben Sayers. Personally, can't say I'm surprised. I have a few pointers on this in the sense of obviously he's directly compared to Tim Volter. So anybody that's compared to that is obviously going to be onto a bit of a winner anyway because we couldn't have got much worse. Um, I will say that morale seemed to improve around the ground when Sayers arrived, but as the season's worn on, results haven't improved like great. They obviously have improved, but haven't improved greatly. And I just wonder if it's enough to keep him in post. And I wonder if it's enough to actually have sustained that level of morale. Obviously, you're never going to know unless you're one of the staff or one of the players. But I I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few days, by the time that we get to the next podcast, that an announcement is made. Um, on the flip side of that, personally, I don't want to become one of those clubs, and you all full well know what I mean. Post Alex Ferguson, Manchester United. Um, but I, I don't. I like. I just. Yeah. I don't know that he's done enough. Um, early rumours floating around if he did go of old Tony Mowbray making an appearance in Hull.
Yeah, that is the name that I'd seen that was the early sort of front runner if they were to make a change. Obviously, speaking as a person who has had his team managed by Tony Mowbray, I don't think it'd be the worst appointment that could be made. You know you're going to get a brand of sort of attacking football, as that's obviously like Mowbray's MO. He likes to play like, passing, decent football. He's not one for the sort of the old lump it and rush sort of stuff. My only concern would be that obviously his last position was obviously back in at West Brom, and he didn't even last out the second half of the season after Corberon had gone. So is the hunger still there from him? Obviously, he's had his cancer scare, and I must admit, I was a bit concerned because when he first went back into West Brom, he looked unwell, which is obviously understandable if he's just recovering from cancer. Does he need the hassle in his life potentially at this point? He'll be in his 60s now. Does he want to sort of put his body through that? I mean, obviously he must have done if he agreed to go back to West Brom, but that might have been just because he knew the area, probably didn't have to buy a house or anything, was probably fairly already set there.
Well, he was probably officially on sick, so therefore his contract would have still been in play, wouldn't it?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, if you're getting him, fit, raring to go, and sort of, I think it's pretty safe to say you're getting a very, very good manager at that level. There's probably not many that have managed more games in the Championship than Tony Mowbray, to be fair, because I'd hazard a guess that at least sort of like 15 of his seasons that he's been a manager have been spent in that particular division, so he knows the division like inside and out. It's that sort of thing where if Borough made a change at manager, I wouldn't be surprised if Mowbray's on the list for them, because never really got given a fair crack at it the first time he was Borough manager. He was working basically with his hands tied behind his back in the fact that he had bugger all money to spend. That's not the case anymore. Borough are in a much stronger position financially, where they should be able to splash a bit of cash if he wanted to bring in his players. The chances are they'll probably move a couple of big hitters on in the summer. There's been talk that Hayden Hackney's had admiring glances from Premier League clubs, and strange enough, the most concrete sort of evidence of bids has actually been from Porto, which seems a bit odd. But they apparently had 2 bids knocked back in January. Borough had no intention of selling at that point. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't go, as he's probably more talented enough to play. He's certainly talented enough to play at a higher level. It's just whether or not they can convince him to give it one more go. I'd be surprised personally, but you never know. And obviously, speaking of the managerial change, there is a possibility that Borough could also be looking to make a change in the head coach role over the course of the summer. Obviously, this is only Carrick's second full season in charge, but from where he was at the time that he came into the club, arguably the last 2 seasons he's regressed in the fact that they finished 4th in his first season, 8th in his second, and now 10th in his third. So arguably the team's getting better from a standard perspective, but the results that are coming through are getting worse. Like I said, this season was probably the height of mediocrity in the fact that they've won as many as they've lost. 18 in total. And I did actually see something that I thought was quite interesting, that since Sayers had come in at Hull, I think it said it was 26 games he'd been in charge for. Identical record to the Borough. Won, drawn, and lost exactly the same number of games. So had the season started at that point, they'd have found themselves in, I think it was like 15th and 16th in the table in that particular time. So not great from that sort of perspective. I know Borough obviously sold their top scorer in January, never really replaced him. The guy that came in to replace him was Kelechi Iheanacho. He scored one in the second half of the season, so not ideal. But he can't. If he was to be given the bullet, he can't really turn around and say that he wasn't backed, because he definitely was given money to spend. It's just a case of having the signings not really panned out the way that he wanted. There's been a lot of games where he's been found out tactically, and the fact that Borough have gone behind and he's not been able to change it up, maybe necessary changes to influence the game.
Maybe they'll wait until after the playoffs have finished, because then if Coventry aren't in the Championship anymore, you might have a shout at one, not going there towards the end of the season, if not the last day, and two, you don't have to play them, so therefore you should be a couple of games better off.
I did get a text off my dad later on that day just saying, "Are you back yet? And I imagine you'll quite happily never see Coventry ever again, will you?" Yes. So, if anyone's keeping count, that's the last 5 games that Coventry have played against Borough and won on the spin. I think in that time, Borough have managed to score a grand total of 2 goals. Oh no, 1 goal in those 5 games as well. So even better. Yeah, I just need to stop going to Borough games that involve Coventry, really, because it's rather depressing for the soul.
Well, if it's any consolation, I've been to a lot of Hull games this season, and all of the Hull games have been depressing for the soul, barring 2, I think, from memory.
You've at least seen them win. I haven't seen them win a game of football since they beat Bradford in the 4th round of the Carabao Cup last season.
I mean,
so not great.
It's pretty niche. At least you saw them win in the Carabao Cup then, because bearing in mind I had to see Hull go 1-0 down after about 30 seconds against Sheff Wednesday this year.
Yeah, not ideal. So yes, my new season's resolution for next year will be to see a Middlesbrough win in person. It didn't happen this season. So yes. That brings us right to the end. Unless you've got anything else that you'd like to bring up at this particular point.
Not really. Obviously, we said about the retained list and stuff, but keep an eye on that over the coming weeks. I'm just thinking back to your comment then about you seeing a Middlesbrough win in person. I've seen a Middlesbrough win in person this season, unfortunately for me. But yeah,
that's depressing that you've seen my team win more recently than I have.
No, but it's depressing because my team lost, you bastard.
It's just one of those quirks, isn't it? The quirk of this particular format that we're doing. It's like, God. Never mind.
I'll as I said, I'll keep an eye out to see if a returned list appears, but I'd expect traction in other areas. I think I know it's a bit of a strange situation, but now that we've stayed in the Championship, I'm weirdly intrigued to see, as long as the management situation gets sorted, what happens with Louis Barry, who we had on loan from Villa, because we got him as, he was going to have a run of games for the side, played 1.5 games, and then went away with a terrible injury, which saw him. He was just about. I think he missed the team on the last day of the season purely for the fact that he went with experienced players that have played in the last few weeks rather than somebody who's been out of the side for a while. I think he was just about fit and ready to go. So whether, because pretty much the entire loan was wiped out by injury, whether they'll have a favour to call in there, because he looked exciting when he was on. It just depends, I guess, if anybody else comes in for him.
I'd be very surprised if he gets game time for Villa next season. So I would imagine a loan is probably the high on their agenda. You'd imagine a Championship club would be preferable. I mean, there is obviously the chance that Stockport could be that championship club as they are in the playoffs and do have a chance of coming up. And obviously that's the team that he was on loan at for the first half of this particular season. So
Just
um,
before we sign off, though, as well, I really feel like I should take this opportunity to say thank you to Cardiff City for meaning that we don't have to go there next season.
so the teams that went down: Cardiff, long old slog; Plymouth, oh, definitely long old slog; Luton, not particularly easy or hard to get to, but shit ground, so not a
It's
massive
all right.
loss.
It's all right though, because now at least they don't have to dock to their stadium to go down a division, do they? Like when they were stressing about it when they went up to the Premier League. So
But does it work in the opposite way? Like, do they have to make it shitter because
well,
they've gone down a division?
I don't think they'll have to rip seats out because um I mean well, I mean if they did rip seats out, I suppose it might make the ground look tidier.
Just, well, surely like broken seats or, half seats would probably lead to the aesthetic, to be honest with you.
Well, if you think if Steve changes his garden bench to just an individual seat, they've probably knocked two off their capacity there anyway from being able to view it through his backyard.
True. Very true. Yes. Luton Town, definitely not one that will be missed from the championship. Obviously, on the other end, where losing Leeds, quite a close game, but the ticket prices are always ridiculously high, so not particularly that bothered about that one. Burnley, probably one of the easier grounds to get to again because it's just over the Pennines, but
Also,
not massively
ridiculously
disappointing.
high ticket prices for such a dump of a ground.
And then what have we got in the playoffs? So we're either going to lose one of Sheffield United, close; Coventry, not close. Can say from past experience, 4 hours, not fun.
Nice ground.
Um, nice ground. Like I said, like, to be fair to them, good atmosphere. It was one of the loudest games I've been to, I would say. Um, Sunderland, nothing really needed for that. And then the fourth team that obviously made it into the playoffs was Bristol City. So obviously, and they had a great. There's a championship roundup show that I watched where they basically said that it's the first time that Bristol City have made the second tier playoffs since they were beaten in the final by one Hull City back in 2008.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
watch this
Well,
space.
we've missed a trick as well. We haven't laid out from those four if we're going to garner a prediction for who's going to go up.
So it's Sheffield United versus Bristol City. From that, I think Sheffield United should have enough to get over the line in that one.
Agreed.
Coventry versus Sunderland is an interesting one for me because Sunderland are going into this in rotten form. They've lost the last five on the spin, and like I said, I don't think any team would enjoy going to Coventry because that stadium is rocking when it's full. So I would be very surprised if Coventry don't at least have a lead going into the second leg. They might have even put the tie to bed, to be honest with you, if Sunderland are playing like they have been recently. So I think at this point I'd be probably suggesting it's probably going to be a Sheffield United Coventry final.
Yeah,
And then it's
I'd
just
agree.
the curse of Sheffield United. I think I'd seen something on the BBC website today that said that they won the FA Cup 100 years ago this year, and in I think it was either 12 or 14 times they've been back to Wembley since. They haven't won, and the last 10 times they haven't scored a goal. Oh no,
I,
that can't be true. That can't be true because they had the semi-final against you guys in 2014. When was that 5-2, 5-3, something like that?
5-3, I think.
So they definitely scored. I think the stat, sorry, was that the four times they've been in the playoff final at Wembley, they haven't scored. That was
Yeah, I think I'd agree with the two getting to the final. I wouldn't for I wouldn't be massively disappointed with Coventry going up. I know that the only disappointing side of that would mean it would be that Frank Lampard would be back in the Premier League as a manager.
Yeah, but the opposite side of that coin is that Chris Wilder is back in the Premier League as a manager.
Yeah, but realistically, I suppose both of them will only get until what, the end of November. So
yeah, stranger things have happened. I don't know.
it's essentially the teams that get to the final, if it is those two teams, are not only playing for the like however many millions of pounds it is these days for club revenue, but effectively also paying off the severance fee from the manager when he gets binned 4 months later.
Yeah, well, I suppose like the main thing is that they're obviously playing for that, you know, the right to get re-promoted the season after the season they get relegated. So you know.
Oh, well, it don't happen to them all, does it, Forest? Going great guns at the moment. Just need to find that form now to see him out the season.
Yes, that's basically what we have to put all our sort of all our thoughts and hopes into now is a positive end to the season for Forest, and hopefully the likelihood of some Champions League games to look forward to next season. That would be very nice. Certainly for Mr. Moore and for us as a byproduct of that. So, yes. So all that's left for me to do is to say thank you to this man right here joining me to go through the high of his team not being relegated, the low of my team not getting into the shake of things to be promoted, and the indifference that Mr. Moore currently feels for Forest, I suppose. Probably the easiest way to put it. Thank you for tuning in to either listen or watch. Join us again next week where we'll go through that particular Nottingham Forest Leicester game and look forward to the next, the penultimate game of the season, which I believe is West Ham versus Forest. I might have got that wrong. Let me just double check. I know that they've got Chelsea on the last day of the season, which should be tasty if they've both got Champions League to play for.
That's the one that's keeping it in their own hands, isn't it, effectively?
It is. It is indeed West Ham versus Nottingham Forest. I've just noticed the FA Cup final is before the season finishes. Weird.
Yep.
I know they've done that before, but I didn't think I thought they'd got away from doing that, but they've obviously not. So strange. Yes. Anyway, join us again next week. We'll go through that game. We'll look forward to West Ham versus Forest, and we'll probably discuss the fact that Borough have not only kept my character, giving him like a new 18-year contract or something like that. But it'll be what it'll be. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Catch you again next week. Until then, take care of yourselves. Keep an eye for each other, and we'll see you later on. Tatty bye for now.
So there you go. What do you think of that? Another one done. Another one gone. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. Before you leave us, if you haven't already, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.